Hey, good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great day so far. Hope you had a good weekend. I got a lot done this weekend. Like I said, I've been working literally my full-time job and then some, on my own stuff. And like this weekend, my wife and I both put in like 12-hour days. So it's, hopefully I'm getting to that point where I can get back to answering questions on the channel and that. So, but yeah, just been super busy. I will get to it. I apologize for the delay. But it's coming. Anyway, so what do I got today? I have that Hummer H3, the one that I did videos on in the beginning when I first started this channel. I think there's shorts on it too. The rear end had gotten filled up with seawater and destroyed the rear differential. So there's a short, and I think there might be a longer video on that and like how ruined the axles were. But anyway, I've done a whole bunch of work to this vehicle, and now it appears that the transfer case is blown up. Let me show you the vehicle real quick. This is it right here, Hummer H3. It's got like 220,000 miles on it, something like that. The customer absolutely is in love with this vehicle, so that's why we keep fixing it. But yeah, so now it seems that the transfer case blew up. He said all of a sudden he got stuck on the side of the road, wouldn't go anywhere. So he was messing with it, and all of a sudden it started going again. Okay. I got in it, check engine light's on. It's on for speed sensor, the output speed sensor fault. Okay. So I went and I go to just drive it down the street real quick, because it seemed to drive okay. All of a sudden it went into like a neutral state. So I'm like, what the heck is going on here? I went to go throw it in park, and as I threw it in park, you could hear the parking pole go brrrr. Well, I'm at a dead stop. That shouldn't be happening. I put it back in gear, and I noticed the speedometer's not moving. Okay, but it almost feels like the tranny's engaged. Like not engaged, like, and so you can roll forward, but like engaged and spinning. So again, I throw it in park, you hear brrr, click. Something's broken. All right. But then I noticed if I put it in four-wheel drive low, I can drive it. Put it back into four-wheel drive high, can't drive it. This is, I'm sorry, this is an all-wheel drive. If it's in regular all-wheel drive high, I can't drive it. It will not go. And it does that parking pole thing. If I put it in four-wheel drive low, I can drive it, and the parking pole thing doesn't happen. So I do recall, even when I first fixed this thing, I had said that I got a funny feeling the transfer case is going to go out on this thing. It was making noise. I did have to replace the what do they call it? The mode select motor, actuator, whatever you want to call it. I did have to change that on it because that was ruined too. The vehicle had been partially submerged in seawater. It didn't get up above and into the vehicle. It was actually just to the undercarriage, just to the bottom edge of the doors. In a slight flood, but it did fill up the differential, and it did ruin the transfer case encoder motor. That's what it's called. I'm sorry. Wound up ruining the hubs and the front wheel bearings, all of that stuff. But yeah, so it's been good for. Hey, it's been over a year. It's got to be what, 18 months now. So, but I got a funny feeling the transfer case went out. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're actually going to pull the transfer case. I told him it's possible he's got a tranny problem too. I'm not sure. I don't get all that involved in transmission work. I can rebuild them. I just prefer not to. I've done quite a number of transfer cases, but he wound up picking up a transfer case. He said he was able to get one at a very, very reasonable price. So he picked one up, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to put this thing up in the air. I'm going to drain the fluid out of it, and I'm going to swap it over. So like I said, I got one. It looks really good, the one that he supplied. So let's get this going and see what happens. Got the Hummer in the air, and I just want to show you something. Most people are used to, on the GM vehicles, the drive shaft for the front differential exits on the driver's side. On these, they exit on the passenger side. If I'm not mistaken, these are Isuzu-based vehicles. So I just want to show you, it's Isuzu-based with like GM product in it, because GM has a big influence in the Isuzu and vice versa, whatever. It's a 4L60 tranny. But let me show you something here. This is the first time I'm actually putting it up in the air. So here is the transfer case, and like I said, if you look, drive shaft exits and comes out onto the passenger side. This is the driver's side over here. All right, so not a big deal, but I want you to see this. There's quite a bit of slop in there when if I'm pushing back and forth on this drive shaft, okay? There's quite a bit of slop. It's not horrendous, but it's there, and it's actually some in the drive shaft itself. Okay, no big deal. But now, let's come to the back here and check this out. All right. See that? That is a ton of play. So yeah, I'm confident whatever happened, and it's done broken. I'd be willing to bet the bushing that's in the back here for the drive shaft probably spun. I'm wondering if this drive shaft is going to be any good. I'm going to find that out in a minute. But if you look, see this? It's wet. That's an oil stain. That's oil stain all over there. It's oil stain all over here, oil stain all the way to the differential. Yeah, you can see it's covered. I already replaced this differential, but like I said, that was a year and a half ago. But you could see the oil staining. See that's blowback from up front. So, I mean, it's all over. This is all covered in oil. So yeah, I'd be willing to bet that the bushing in the back of the in the tail shaft portion of the transfer case probably let go, and so now it has all that play, and it broke something internally. That's why it won't go in regular all-wheel drive. That's why it'll only go in four-wheel low. So let me start taking this apart. I want to see what the front of this drive shaft looks like, because we may have to get a drive shaft for this thing too. All right, let's start getting it apart. Now we're going to do first, we're going to drain it. I want to see what's actually in this, if there's anything in it. I mean, not that it's going to matter, this thing's trashed anyway, but I'm just curious. Okay, yeah, there's nothing in it. I did not pull this out beforehand. Yeah. So, yeah, there's a bunch of metal and goo in there. All right, so well, we know the transfer case is shot no matter what, so I'm going to just put the drain plug back in. So let me get that in, and I'm going to pull the drive shaft out. I want to take a look at the end of the drive shaft, see what that looks like, and we'll go from there. All right, we got the drive shaft out, and yeah, it's the yoke is shot. You can actually see how discolored it is up there. It almost looks like there might have been an internal fire. But yeah, it's all gold and snot over here. There's no fixing this. This is going to have to get replaced. So let's continue getting this thing apart. Leave that hanging out there. Just curious if anything can be seen on the inside there. Yeah, the bushing just basically blew away completely. And this thing was riding on the inside of the case. Matter of fact, hold on. That's the, now that I'm looking at it, and I think about it, that's the actual bushing. See that? That's the actual bushing stuck to the drive shaft. See that? There it goes. That's the bushing. That's the actual bushing. All right. Let's get it apart. I'm going to have to get a yoke or a drive shaft. I wonder if it's the same yoke as what's used on like a Silverado drive shaft. I may have a couple of those laying around. If not, we're going to have to find out where he got it. He got this transfer case from another, or from a wrecking yard. It's in like a couple towns over, so it's not too far from here. So, I don't know, we're going to see. The splines in this look rather fine, so, but I'm gonna have to find out. I'm going to have to see. If we have one that fits, great. If not, then we're going to have to find a drive shaft somewhere. All right, let's keep going. All right, so next step is I'm going to take this cross member out here. I'm going to unhook the drive shaft in the front there. And this way, the reason we're taking this out is so I can easily get to the transfer case. Now, I can actually get to them here, amazingly enough. Actually, I didn't think I could, but I can. I wonder, you know what though, I probably don't have enough room to get my hand up and around the top without dropping the whole assembly down. So let me at least take the two bolts out there so this whole cross member will drop down a bit. And hopefully, maybe I can get enough room to get, maybe I can. Let me try getting the nuts off first. Maybe I could do that. Let's find out. I want to get the drive shaft off, wiring harness off. And I want to show you something interesting. Just noticed. The exhaust is loud. See that? That's the cat. The bottom of it actually rotted out. So it's leaking exhaust right there. Interesting. Yeah, it's got a little hole starting there, but I've actually never seen a cat do that before. But yeah, you can see the medium inside the cat there. It's amazing there's no carbon buildup. I don't know if he's going to want us to fix that while I got it apart. Now would be the time to fix it, I'm going to tell you that. Got it unbolted, got it hanging down. I wanted to show you one thing. Here's the encoder motor. I replaced this thing like a year and a half ago. But I wanted to show you, I actually had to take that off to gain clearance for the cross member here. And this is a permanent cross member, this you can't unbolt. So I had to make clearance because I wanted to rotate this down, because the other way they want you to do is take the exhaust off. And when you take the exhaust off, the exhaust, which goes that way, I mean, I got to fix it anyway if he wants me to, but the exhaust actually hits here, so you got to rotate this. The exhaust hits here, I'm sorry. So this thing has to rotate down. When you rotate it down, this being here, you have no clearance here, so it won't come back far enough to clear the top to drop down. So I wound up doing that, and now I'm going to drop this thing down on the floor. I'm going to probably take this transfer case apart just to see what damage is done to the inside, because I'm just curious. But yeah, so now I could drop this whole thing out. Sometimes, believe it or not, this is actually easier on the ground than it is on a lift, because on a lift you got to juggle with this stupid thing. But at least on the ground, yeah, you got to juggle with it, but you're not, you know, 5 feet off the ground trying to do this. So, but anyway, yeah, so let me keep going. Let me get this thing completely out of here, and then let's get the new one in place. Here it is. I got it sitting on a brake rotor. This way I have it balanced, and this way the input shaft kind of goes through the center of it. But I was taking all of the bolts out there. Some of them are stuck. They're not coming out easy. So I'm going to have to heat them up a little bit with my little torch. Hopefully, this should be enough to get them out, because the other ones came right out. It's just those, for some reason, they're just not coming out. So let me heat those up, get those out, and hopefully this case half should just slide right off. I don't see a spot for a clip to hold anything in place, so it should just come right apart. Let's see what happens. Got it apart, and the two halves, they should slide apart relatively easy, and they didn't. I had to beat on it with a hammer quite a bit, but you can see down here, that's the bearing retaining area right there. This, what's left of this bearing, sits inside there, and it basically spun and locked in there. So I'm not quite sure what actually is keeping this thing from moving forward, but something in here is obviously messed up. And that blob you see right there, see that like glob right there, that's the output speed sensor for the vehicle, so hence the speed sensor code. So now, you know, looking inside here, this piece should actually stay with that case half when you pull it apart, but it was stuck. I could not get it apart. I was beating on it with a hammer. Eventually I got it to break free, and once I got it to break free, then everything came apart. But yeah, you can see that bearing is just absolutely toasted, and you can see all the damage to that tone wheel from hitting the sensor. And you can see all the metal inside here. This is a selector shaft. This is where that motor goes, the encoder motor. But there's just metal everywhere in here. So I think that's all from aluminum. You can see how dry this is too. This is obviously overheated. This moves. So, but something in here is, yeah, it's whatever. Something in there is a little locked up. But whatever. We know that this is where we have to start. Amazingly enough, the chain doesn't look that bad. But I mean, that's a substantial chain. Look how thick that thing is. Yeah, it's just full of mung and metal and everything else. So I'm assuming there's some kind of a clutch drive set up in there that's smoked, and that's. But that doesn't make sense as to why it still would have four-wheel drive below. And I might take more of this apart at some point just to see what exactly is going on. Alright, let me get the other one ready to go in. I got to clean off, up in there, I got to clean off that gasket. If you look there, you can see the gasket's still on there. I got to clean that one off and get it ready for the new transfer case to come in place. Alright. Well, I ripped it all apart. I don't see anything like obvious that was creating the neutral situation, unless for some reason it was stuck in neutral, where instead, you know, it was in four-wheel drive. I guess that could explain why when I went to go stick it in park, you know, you could hear it, the parking pole ratchet, as if it was moving. But yeah, I mean, this thing's just completely burned up regardless. I mean, it needed to be replaced. But like I said, nothing in particular is showing me like a breakage or anything like that. So, you know, the case is ruined, the shafts are ruined, the bearings ruined, everything's ruined. So I mean, there's no, you know, it's done for. I did have to order a front yoke, so that's supposed to be here tomorrow. But I got the new one in place. I'm just doing the final hookups with it. And let me just show you. There it is. It's in place. It's bolted up. I had to clean the gasket surface down. So basically I just got to hook everything back up. I got to put the motor on there. Yeah, motor or tranny mount. front drive shaft, stuff like that. I got to put all that in place. And like I said, to try to pull this out, you got to rotate this thing down, because otherwise the motor hits here. And if you were to try to like rotate it up without taking the motor out, you're hitting this exhaust pipe here. So instead of taking the exhaust out, easier to take the motor off, those 3 little bolts, get that out of the way, swing this thing down and get it out. So yeah, so let me get the rest of this hooked up, and then hopefully tomorrow I have the yoke, and I can put a new yoke with a new universal joint into it and get this thing back on the road, give it back to the customer. Okay, got the new yoke for the Hummer. Here it is. It's a Dorman 697 560. So let's make sure this thing fits before we do anything else. Look at that, perfect fit, nice and snug. So there we go. All right, so now we're gonna put this on with a new U joint and go from there. And there it is, the yoke is in place. New U joint's got the grease fitting. I'll grease it once it's up in place, but let's get this bolted in and see what happens. Drive shaft's in, battery's connected. I still got it on the lift, so let's start it up and let's see what it does. Climb up in here. Now let's see. I had the battery disconnected. I don't know if I cleared out all the codes. Let's do this. Alright, so for now, it says 4 high. It just engaged. Traction control's kicking on. It's my fault. Turn that off. You can see the speedometer's working. It wasn't working before. That's fine. It still has some kind of limited traction control. Just do this. ABS keeps kicking. Alright, so now stability system is off. Okay. Well, let's try that again. Put it in gear. Yeah, I mean, we got speed reading, everything else. So I'm good with that. Pop it into neutral. Like I said before, in 4 high, we did not have anything. I don't know why this thing has such an issue, but then again, it's on the lift. All right, so we have 4 high lock, and then we have 4 high low. Let's go 4 high, or I'm sorry, 4 low. Oh, I just heard it click. So, yep, that's working. Put it back into 4 high. That 4 high is pretty much an all-wheel drive. 4 lock is basically like a full full-time 4-wheel drive. All-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive. That's what that is. And then 4 low. All right, so let's kick this thing off the lift and let's take it for a road test. All right, so we're going out on my road here, in front of the shop. First gear, second gear. Okay, that's good because it wasn't shifting before. I guess because it wasn't seeing the output speed, so it didn't know where to shift. It was kind of in like a default setting. Default setting, if I didn't say that correctly. Yeah, this thing feels perfect. So once I cross the main road here, I'll stop somewhere, put it in 4-wheel low, and then we're going to end the video. All right, so the road test went fine. I'm back in my parking lot here, so I know all-wheel drive technically. I mean, it feels perfect. Let me just try 4-wheel low in the parking lot and see what happens. Now, to get 4-wheel low, you got to put it in neutral. Shifter's in neutral, as you can see up on the cluster there. And now I'm just going to select 4-wheel low. So now, yep, it feels perfectly fine. So I am good with that. I'm absolutely good with that. And yeah, I can feel like locking up on itself, which tells me it's in actual 4-wheel drive. Launch here. The lights aren't flashing, it's just the way the camera does it. Yeah, it feels good. So I'm happy with that. Alright, let's put this thing back into regular, put it in neutral, like that. We're back. Everything's good. All right. So that's the end of that video. So if you got something out of that, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys. Have a great day. Keep wrenching.